Hi, Agnes back with my sixth in the Agnes letters. The Agnese project is a research project into what letters would have looked like, sounded like, or been like for my persona to receive from her grandmother in Florence, Italy. Agnes was born in Florence, raised by her maternal grandmother, and to cement some alliances in the wool trade and cloth trade, was married off to somebody of wealth in Calais. And these letters seek to document using extant letters, texts, and peer-reviewed journals what her first pregnancy might look like from the perspective of letters answering her questions coming back to her in Calais. All right, so the letters are in three different sets. The first set is the first trimester, the second is the second trimester we're in right now, and the final trimester is coming along nicely. Each group of letters has three letters within that thing, so it sort of nests the three within three. All right, final letter for tonight. 13 October 1562. Illustrious Agnese, it has been some time since I have written a letter. I was unwell with a fever, but through God and help of a physician, I am well now. I am in possession of a book concerning matters of conception and birth. It was written not long ago by a Jacob Rueff. I would send it to you, yet many of your cousins have also written to me for advice, and it is great use to all. In it he speaks of tools that can aid at birth, one such being a stool. I have not used one myself, but sat balanced upon the laps of my attendants. Being you have so few to attend you, in July I commissioned such a stool for you. The back has a slope, and the arms hold you as you bring forth the child. Another present, sent from your brother's wife Maria, accompanies it. She sends you a zamara to fasten at the neck, if indeed it is needed. It most modestly covers you at this time. It is made from cloth in Florence, and not outside the city. The pattern of the pomegranates shall please you. May God hold you and your child close as your time comes forth. Your grandmother, Leonarda. All right, so let's take this apart piece by piece and talk about the research, lovely footnotes, that go into the lovely sources, all about it. So manuals, books, and medical schools were all commonly available at the time of this pregnancy for those who could afford them. In fact, the Medici would hire physicians, and when a Medici daughter was married out, a physician would accompany her. Other noble families would do this also. They have a trained physician or a midwife who also trained with the physicians. Yes, this was a thing at the time. You could have a trained midwife who also knew some medical knowledge at the time. Go get sent with you. It was, your mom couldn't be there for the birth, but she could make sure that you had the best doctors and the best people available to attend you. So in here, we talk about this book that she's in possession of by a Jacob Rueff. It's Rueff. Please excuse my poor German. I did look up how to pronounce it online, and I fear I am stumbling over it. So this extant manual in 1554, which you can find online in Google Books, super cool. So there's a manual, and it talks about pages about childbirth processes. It shows like a uterus, and it shows babies like in different positions within it. So there's like breech, and there's feet, there's babies sideways. It's really fascinating how they draw like a uterus, like a cutaway with a little tiny like little baby floating inside of it, and talking about what to do in these occasions. It also talks about birthing tools like forceps, and there's like these pincher ones that have like a duck beak, so that if the baby passes in the birth canal, or they feel it's stuck or it's taken too long and they have to try and save the mother, they can actually extract the fetal material from the womb. So some of these instruments, though, looking at them, aren't too far off from ones used in modern day obstetric and gynecological practices, which is a little bit disturbing when you think about it, that they're still recognizable as such hundreds of years later, and they're designed by men. So that was something I thought about. But there was a lot about birthing stools, not only in his book, but in subsequent articles and manuals. So you can go all the way back to the time of Egypt and find birthing stools. These are still things that people use today. I have a friend whose dad, actually, he does woodwork, made her one to use during her children's birth. She had 3 home births, and she used the birthing stool all 3 times, and it is pretty much look the same as the images that came across in these journal articles. All right, so this book on childbirth and pregnancy also had some interesting things in it about deformities. It had some conjoined twin pictures, and then some pictures that looked more fanciful toward the end of it. But it was really interesting. It's on Google Books. Strongly recommend it. It is in the original German. There are translations that, of course, exist. But always interesting to see an extant book and be like, wow, this was in publication. And then in looking for it, realizing it was republished and republished and republished because people had babies. People wanted to know what to do if something went wrong. So in this, her grandmother talks about giving birth on the laps of trusted helpers. This is something that's actually mentioned in letters of the time period as well. So, and if you think about childbirth, it's a way to hold a woman and support them and their legs so they can bear down. So it kind of makes sense that you might have that position yourself mentioned. So we talk about a Zimara, this overcoat that she's wearing over her clothing. And this is Eleonora di Toledo and Francesco di Medici. There's a painting of them from 1550 at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And it depicts her wearing one of these like overcoats. It's very decorative, very beautiful. The closest thing I can think of in like our modern terms is sort of like just a very long duster to kind of go over everything. And so maybe saying, oh, wait, there's a picture of her pregnant in this? Yes. So pregnancy portraiture was actually quite common. There were actually women who painted other women. If you go back into the sources, some of these paintings are noted in there of pregnant women. Especially first pregnancies, you might get a portrait done. Why? You might not make it out the other side, and your child might want to know what you looked like. Also, being able to signify that you are pregnant and you are pregnant again is at that time showing you're doing your job. Look at me, I'm making errors. So pregnancy portraitures actually was an issue then. If you think now too, we do pregnancy photo shoots, we meaning in general, overarching American culture. You might see portraiture now. People are excited about that new baby. They want to show off the bump. So even then, same thing. So we talk about the fabric, and the reason we talk about the fabric, I wanted to go and look at how people talked about cloth. And as a side note, in one of the other articles, it talked about a pregnant woman requesting specifically cloth from Florence made in the city, not from outside of it. And in looking at that, I was so intrigued by that detail that I wanted to put that in there. I wanted to talk about maternity clothes. I don't personally research or sew or make garb, so this was outside of my comfort zone, but I felt that it was totally within the realm of what should and could be explored in a letter to a pregnant woman. So that was one of the things that I kind of pushed outside of where I'm familiar to bring these details in to the crafting of the letter. So the wording made sense topically. And she talks about the pattern of pomegranates pleasing her. Now, pomegranates were all the rage in the 1550s. Artichokes also. These were plants the Medicis had in their gardens, and there was specific mentioning of these patterns being in use. Very interesting article I read. One side note, a little off topic, when I read it, I was looking at it and I was trying to understand the original language. I had gotten a translation and I realized it was in Ukrainian, which made me have a thought for the author and wonder how she is, given the situation there at the time. But yeah, it was a great article. So that's taking apart the last of these letters. We're going to be moving on to the rest of her pregnancy in the next installment. That'll probably come out in a few weeks. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you were intrigued by some of these primary sources we've covered.